Welcome back to Springfield, USA. Today we have Vicki and Tom with us. You might know them from many of their ventures around the community. They're super active in our community, but they did not grow up here. So we are going to just jump in and learn how they ended up here in Springfield, Ohio.
All right. So thanks so much for having us.
Yes,
We're really excited. So Tom and I didn't grow up in Springfield. I grew up on Lake Erie, Tom in Granville. We met in Columbus, and we had a daughter, and we were looking for a city that was its own city that we could become a part of. And we wanted a city that was a mixed socioeconomic community that had arts and parks and something that felt like we were in a community. And I had been to Springfield twice on different projects, and we knew of it because the Wescott House had recently opened. Right. And so we decided to come over and look. And since we owned our own business, we could really move anywhere. And so if you want to, I don't need to talk the whole time.
No, that's all right. Yeah, so I was actually looking for houses then here and spotted one we really liked and drove to look. I came in by myself, I think, to look at it. It was already sold, but then I spotted one. We ended up, no, it was the one across the street we looked at. Yeah. And we didn't like it for whatever reason, and then we saw one for sale by owner across the street, and the rest is history. Man.
Yeah, we thought the city looked great. We loved the old buildings. We liked the art museum. The first thing we did when we moved here is we went right to the Wescott House and volunteered. Yep. Said, what can we do? We went to the art museum and volunteered.
It's an awesome art museum.
Yeah, and so that's how we ended up here. And of course, the old buildings attracted us. Our background is in economic development for the city of Columbus, specifically Tom in the downtown. And so the community in terms of its structures was very attractive to us.
And what year was that you guys
we
came
moved here in 2006.
Okay.
So we're on 19 years, almost 20 now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you guys might know them for is the really super cool building that they own. And I need refreshed on how you guys came upon that building, how you ended up owning it, and what you ended up doing with it.
Well, the funny thing about that building is that Dina was taking dance at Gary Geis downtown. Remember that? We went for a walk waiting on her.
We do a lot of urban exploring.
Yeah. So we went walking, I guess down the bike path or something. We looked at that building and we're like, wow, it's the old Winchester Carton building. We're like, wow, that's amazing. I'd love to have that building, but like, what am I going to do with it?
At that point, we were photographers. We weren't doing what we're doing now.
We just did it out.
We didn't need a 5-story, 35,000 square foot warehouse.
Yeah.
So,
but I loved it.
Orient people on where your building is if they haven't been there before. So you mentioned that you might be walking down the bike path. So it is on the bike path, which is a really cool aspect of it. Yeah. I always tell people it's near the library.
That's correct.
It is.
The building sits on the corner of West Jefferson and Wittenberg. And the bike path goes behind it. If you stand at our dock and you look east, you see the Coos. We're just 2 blocks away. Yeah, we look at the library on our dock doors.
Bus stations,
across the street almost. Where they keep the buses. So we're right there on the edge of downtown, on the south side of the tracks.
Yep.
It's really neat.
Yeah, it's a great building.
So you walk by it, you fell in love with it.
Yeah, loved it. Never thought that I would own it, honestly. But we started Itinerant Studio. What year did we start? Like 2010?
2009, officially.
Yeah, and it just took off. And then we needed to buy a printer, which is huge. And we needed space for the printer, which is funny, the printer costs as much as the building.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
It's like we had the printer coming and we had no place to put it.
So can you mention quickly what Itinerant Studio is and therefore why you might have needed a giant printer?
So Itinerant Studio, we call ourselves a production art company. We sold wholesale to the industry, to boutique stores, to designers and things, and it's mainly our photography.
And we sell that all over the world.
And it's wall art. Is that how you would pronounce?
Yes.
Yeah, it's our photography printed on unusual materials, and it goes quite large. So we print on birch, recycled aluminum. Amy and Elise Leventhal make gold leaf boards for us that we print on. And so we're known for unusual materials that we can do huge installations.
Yeah, we can scale
as well
it up.
as small.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But so we used to contract out the printing, but we got to the point where we could buy the printer. but we had no place to put it. So we're like, we need a building. So we looked everywhere. I mean,
I've been in
we were everywhere.
most of the buildings in Springfield. We knocked on people's doors.
Oh yeah,
I'd look up. I'd see
Who
an
owned
abandoned building, and or what looked abandoned, and I would look up who owned it, and we would go find them to ask if they were willing to sell it.
This is our government background coming in. We like look up who owns it, where they live, and we
most
just show up
people
at their
don't know how
door.
to do
Bing.
that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're just like bang, bang, bang on the door,
Yeah,
and like, hey, you want to sell your building?
but no one was.
No
So,
one
and then we started looking outside of Springfield, and which really wasn't what we wanted. We liked being part of a community. But we were getting a little desperate.
Yeah.
And we had talked to John Landis and told him, he's like, have you found anything? And I said, no, we're now looking in Urbana towards Yellow Springs. And he's like, you can't do that. Yeah. And I was like, I know, but I'm desperate.
We're desperate.
And he goes, Craig Dillon's and the guys are selling Winchester Carton. And I was like, really? No, I thought everyone in town knew I was looking for a building. And
Yeah, weren't you on the board with
You're like,
them?
I've talked to so many people.
I know, and I know all three of them, but so I called up Craig, and he goes, "Yeah, we just decided to sell it." So we looked at it.
Yeah.
We asked if we could have a structural engineer go through it,
Yeah.
and we made an offer. We used the same lawyer, so it was super easy.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, we were done. We owned Winchester Carton.
Yeah.
You own that beautiful
Yeah,
building.
we bought
Yeah,
it in
we bought it.
2014 in the summer. By the time it was finalized.
Yeah.
So it's 5 stories. It's how many square feet did you say?
35,000 square feet.
Wow.
Original building built in 1911. The 5-story addition was built in the late 20s, and a 1-story addition built in the 40s.
Wow.
Yeah, super cool. Great history. Thanks to Jack May, for doing all the history for us. We
Oh,
have
yeah, he's
amazing
found out.
photos of it. It's so cool.
You have a whole freight
I love-
elevator you can ride.
We have a
Yeah.
great freight elevator.
So true.
Yeah.
So
And
true.
it feels really special to us to be able to save that, especially when you learn of the history and what it meant for Springfield. And even though we're not from here, we're Springfielders.
Yeah,
Right.
we're
You
part
know,
of
and
it
our
now.
daughter was raised here, and we're very attached to this community. And so for us, when people come in and they're like, wow, thank you, it's a little bit odd.
Yeah.
And they're just so appreciative and they're so excited. They're like, this is amazing. And that's the best part of owning the building, 100%.
So I think people know that you've saved that building, but there are other buildings that you've been involved in terms of developing and identifying historic value in other buildings, working with across the community to save and develop some of our other historic buildings. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Why don't we talk a little bit about the art studios? Why can't the Hatch?
Oh,
Yeah.
Where we came up with a good way to John Landis spend his money.
Oh, I love the Hatch. It's one of my favorite places in town.
Well, yeah, let's do that, but let's backtrack one step further.
Okay.
How we got for John to trust us to do that.
I'm not sure why he did trust us, but anyhow.
Because of our background in downtown development and economic development, we knew the value, and I'm not even going to go into historic on this point. We knew the value of a downtown and its history and its buildings, and what makes it unique. And so when we moved here, the buildings really excited us in terms of that community and the value. So when we heard certain buildings were going to be torn down, or people thought there was no value to them because they weren't being used today,
Yeah.
we got really involved. We had kind of left that world behind, and we're like, now we're running an art studio, we're doing all this cool stuff, and then we were like, okay, we have to get back involved. And so we just felt maybe it was a way we could help is by imparting some of the knowledge we gained by working in that field, that maybe. So we got involved with Save the New Sun and the Wren Building, and just generally getting involved with the people who were like-minded. And then, because we became friends with John Landis, we were always trying to get him to do things with his money and his buildings.
Money. Yeah. Like, I'm sure he appreciated that.
I'm sure he appreciates it. But there's 2 great art studios in Cincinnati that are very similar, and they're the Pendleton. And we went and talked to those people about how they ran it. And we're like, we need that in Springfield. We're a creative, amazing city with all these artists. We need an art studio for working artists. And really, it came down to John was waiting, and then when the Loftuses decided to buy the Rhodes paper box building
yeah.
to make Mother Stewart's.
Because we had looked at that as well.
Yeah.
Before they bought it.
Yeah.
We looked at it.
Yeah, we should make a little list of everywhere
All the buildings we've been through.
But John called us and said, I can now see the energy of this block. Let's go.
Yep.
And so we came in and helped.
Yeah. We drew out the plans, the original plans for it.
Yeah, and we told them, don't paint over the graffiti.
Yeah, we're like,
don't
just
fix
leave it.
anything. Leave the old windows.
Because that gives it
And one of
its
the things
character.
that's really cool about that building is the tile work where you can see the
yeah.
casket company.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Leaving
Still
all
in the
that is
tile
so
work.
important.
Yeah.
In this community, the longer we've been here, I am in awe over the people that did grow up here, or most of their life was spent here, how much they value it, the everyday person, how much they value those little things like, oh, I could see that my grandfather worked there, or I was here when it was a bar, and they know so much. This community knows so much about their history.
I spent many a night in that building when it was ringside.
Yeah, I say,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, yeah,
exactly.
I didn't know anything about the casket company, but I knew a little thing,
Right.
thing or
About
two
the-
about
about
Which
the
is
bar.
part of its lore, which is
Yeah.
great. But people here, I'm in constant awe over what people know about this community.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys helped develop the artist studio idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I advised, offered
yeah, I don't know,
direction based on things that we had done in Columbus.
Yeah, and I know from my background in economic development in Columbus that with an art studio, we know artists don't have any money. You have to keep the cost down for it to be successful. So
And you don't want it to look like Class A office space.
Yeah, you don't want it to look that way just because it's not interesting. And the other thing, keep the cost down. So we would go in there like, nope, don't do that. Keep the windows. Yeah, leave the floor. Don't do this. Don't, And it's beautiful.
It is.
I mean, it's a
It
beautiful
is. And if you
space.
haven't seen it, it's open every first Friday from 5 to 9 p.m. It's one of the wonderful things about our downtown First Friday is the fact that Hatch Artist Studios are open. I talked to John once about, wouldn't it be great if they were open more often? And he's like, the point of them is for them to be working artist studios.
Yeah.
We want the artists to go in there and be able to relax and make their art, and it's not designed to be a retail space. And that's one of the magical things about it,
It
because
is.
once
I
a
think it
month
is,
you get
yeah.
to kind of peek behind the scenes
Yeah, that's fun.
at a lot of these people who are doing amazing work and see their process.
Exactly.
Yeah, the caliber of artists in there. I can't say I'm amazed because I knew they were here.
Yeah.
I knew they were here. because
We always talk
I
about
was always like,
what's
"There's
in the
great-"
water in
Yeah, it's like,
Springfield,
"There's-
like all the
it's
talent
amazing."
here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
in all the arts. But anyhow, yeah.
Well,
But
and
it
I
is
have to do a
amazing.
shameless plug now because one of the ways that we're really going to have that on display is the Springfield Symphony is doing a Art of Music fundraiser this spring, and they've but they have reached out to 25 different artists, and they've painted what was going to be discarded pieces of discarded instruments. So there's cellos and tubas and French horns and all kinds of
that's
things
so
that were
cool.
broken or people had in their closet that they were never going to
Right,
use.
right.
And they gave them to artists, and they're now art pieces that are going to be silent auctioned off this spring. So that was one of those aha moments
Mm-hmm.
when you saw 25 different musical instruments
Yeah.
of all. There's some that are in plaster. There's some that are painted. There's some that are made into completely other things.
Yeah,
I mean,
just wonders like how it's such
yeah,
creativity.
and then
It's
you're
amazing.
like looking at the signatures, and you're like, oh yeah, like there is one of the artists in Hatch did a piece, and anyway, we're not here to talk about the symphony, but it is a wonderful example of the artistry that we have in town. And one of the things,
exactly.
I was talking to Lou one day about how much talent we have here, and he's like, there's talent in every town. You just have to give the avenues for people to be able to express
Yeah,
it.
I'm sure that's true.
That's right. And the collaboration here is great.
Yes. That's one of the things we're trying to do with this podcast is help everyone understand the talent and community members that we have here. So anyhow, pivoting to one of the organizations you're involved in, since I got to randomly talk about the symphony, work the symphony into our conversation. You guys do a lot of work with the Wescott House.
We do. Like I said, one of the first places we went to when we moved here was the Wescott House. We used to take pictures for them.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah.
explain
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah.
people what the Wescott
Sure.
House is?
Sure. So the Wescott House is a Frank Lloyd Wright designed house for Mr. Burton Wescott, who made cars, the Wescott car. And the house was restored 20 years ago this
Yeah,
year. It's
this
a big year
yeah.
for Wescott.
Yeah.
And what I loved was when we heard it was restored and funded by the members of this community. Again, blew my mind away.
Yeah, because that's no easy task.
And it's a great house. It was one of the first house he did after he came
One
back
of the
from
first
Japan.
that he did, when he came back from Japan, and he used it in his portfolio when he went to Europe. So it was an important home to him.
Yeah. And what's cool about it is it's not just a museum house. It is a design center. There's parties, there's education, there's all sorts of things related to the house, which makes it unique and special. It's more living than it is just a museum you wander through, which
That's
we really
actually something
love.
I've just recently learned about it. The more that I talk to folks affiliated with the Wescott House, the mission is so much broader than I thought. Oh, they wanted to preserve the Frank Lloyd Wright architecture. They want to make sure people get to see it, but the mission really goes beyond that.
Yeah, and that's grown, obviously. And then they added in the historic walking tours that they were 20 years old last year, I believe, that Kevin Rose started, fall under the Wescott umbrella now, which fits that whole design studio concept. And those are amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And those happen all over Springfield, right?
All over Springfield. Kevin does all the research. And it's not just this house was built in 1901. It talks about the architecture, the house, the people who built it, what happened to it, why it was relevant. And they're great. You walk and you have a tour guide. We always give the mid-century tours. We begged Kevin to add mid-century.
You got to add mid-century.
Yeah, so we give those. But those are special. I mean, the fact that he has so many tours that he can't even do them all in 1 year speaks to the interesting nature of Springfield.
Yes. And the fact that just about anybody can take a walk around their own neighborhood and learn so many things about it that they had no clue about before.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The built environment in Springfield is remarkable.
Yeah.
Only eclipsed by the people here.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Well, you're just queuing me up so beautifully for these segues. So, we talk about the architecture. We've talked about their business a little bit. We actually should probably talk more about your businesses, but we'll work that in maybe. But one of the things that is so important to you guys is the people and being just a good steward to the community. If you don't know Vicki and Tom, it's because so much of what they do is behind the scenes. That's one of the things that I really admire about you is that every time I talk to you, I learn more about the good that you're doing in the community.
I appreciate that.
I'm more impressed with their character and their integrity and the work that they're doing around here. So, not to embarrass you or put you in the spotlight when you're not necessarily the spotlight people. You're not ones to necessarily talk about all the good you do all the time, but just kind of talk through in terms of, you talked about economic development, you talked about restoring old buildings. Now, how do you help maintain that sense of community that gives that commerce, those buildings, life, connection, all of the things that we actually love about being part of the community?
Oh, wow.
See, they're speechless for the first time because they're not braggers in that sense.
I don't know. I grew up in a household in a city much like Springfield. My parents were very civically minded. Tom, I think as you grew older, the same type of thing. And so it seemed very natural for us to come in somewhere and say, where can we fit in? Where can we be of help? How can we just be a part to create a better fabric or a wider fabric or whatever you want to call it? But I think when it comes to people, we like people. Really, it comes down to is we like people. We like all people.
One of the unique aspects, I'm just going to interject here for a second, just to talk a little bit about your store. So they own Duo Home, and one of the unique aspects of their store, and they talk about this when they talk about their store, is that it's not just a place that you go in and shop. It's a furniture store, which means it's full. There's also gifts, and there's a lot of wonderful things that they sell of all different kinds. But they sell furniture, which means it's full of really comfy, cozy vignettes of furniture. So you go in and you just naturally find your favorite couch and you cozy up and you end up chatting, and it becomes, I think you called it a third space.
Yeah, a third place, yeah.
Yeah. So it has become, and I don't know if that's what you intended when you opened it.
It's been a surprise, but the best surprise, that we have people that just come hang out. And we always say, I mean, unless something's an emergency, we always have time for people. Yes, that I want to get this paperwork done. Yes, were we supposed to do more work?
Or whatever.
But if someone comes in, that we try to make them the focus of our attention. And so we love people coming in. We have ladies that walk around downtown and they come in and sit in the store just to visit. And we chat and different Saturdays you'll find groups of people sitting in the store. And we also welcome everyone. So as many people know, there's a lot of people down on their luck that have trouble in Springfield, and we've given them jobs to do around. We just generally help them. Sometimes they just want to talk. They just hang out. And that's been since we've owned the building now for 11 years.
11 years, yeah. Well, I mean, I think we both feel everybody's important to the community. And so, yeah, we welcome everybody in the stores.
I think one of my favorite experiences at your store was the day that I was there hanging out, because the furniture is so cozy.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and the company is so wonderful. And you had a fellow come in who always brings you whatever his latest treasure is.
Yeah.
Steve,
see? So they always know it, their names. They know, he researches. Talk about Steve.
Yeah.
So Steve, he just turned 80 this year.
Yeah.
We celebrated his birthday this month. He's lived in Springfield for most of his life. He collects ceramics from everywhere. Beautiful. He's taught me so much. But he started coming in just to see what the store was.
Actually, he came in, there was a story in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And he came in carrying the newspaper.
And he goes, I came in here to see you. And he always has on Chucks, mostly blue jeans, and he has multiple colored Chucks.
Yeah.
And they
Very
match
proud
to
of his Chuck collection.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they match his shirt.
So true.
Oh, yeah. He's fantastic. And so he comes in, always brings a piece of pottery, ceramics, sometimes glass.
Yeah.
Teaches me about it. It's French. It's Japanese pre-war. Tells me how to
How
learn
he knows all this stuff,
I know.
I have no idea.
He's amazing.
Yeah,
I would
no
love
idea.
for there to be a show of Steve's collection of Ohio pottery and ceramics.
Oh, yeah, I've
and
mentioned
glass
that to him, and
at
he's
the
over
art
there.
museum. I know. He's talk about someone who's
And
under
doesn't
the
he take notes about the piece and put
So-
them inside?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, all his piece. So if he brings a piece from his house, there's always notes in it to his kids. Do not sell this at a garage sale. And then he writes about them so they know. And then pieces that he just picks up, he'll bring to the store, and I'll do like a Google reverse search to tell him like, oh, there's a lot of these out there, at least on that, like a quick glance. Or I'll tell him, he's like, I don't know what that mark is. And so we'll do a little research. He always also brings us food
Oh, yeah.
every day. It's a random assortment.
I forgot about the food.
Yeah,
Yep.
hard-boiled eggs, bananas, apples, sometimes berries, cookies. He knows I really like Milk Duds, but I'm trying not to eat so much junk. So he brings me like 5 a day or 5 every other day.
rations.
And he calls them my pudge pills. So
That's amazing.
And we have nicknames.
we all have nicknames.
You're Blossom, I'm Buster.
Yeah, Jack is
Oh, God, why can't, something Pete. Why can't I think of
Pogo Pete.
Pogo Pete. That's it.
so he's a really great example of just, he comes in every day. I don't know if Steve's ever bought anything in our store, but we don't care.
But if he doesn't show up, we're worried about it.
Oh, he didn't show up for 2 days, and I called his daughter in Texas.
You'll find out where he
The
is.
fact that you knew how to get a hold of his daughter in Texas.
Oh, yeah, and I know where he lives. And so,
Yeah, it's
we
like,
called and
all
we're
right.
like, hey, I'm worried your dad has not been here in 2 days.
2 days.
And he did not call me either, and he's not answering his phone. So,
Yeah, because he's there every day we're open, within 15 minutes when we open. And if he sees our vehicles there when we're not open, he stops by.
yeah, like on days that we're just there working.
Or
Yeah.
he's even showed up at the house a few times.
Oh, yeah. So we take care of my mother. My sister and I share. She has kind of a beginning stages of dementia. 1 month I have my mother, 1 month my sister down in Hamilton has my mother. And Steve is so great to her.
Oh, God.
And on our days off, we'll be hanging out like on the back patio at my house. He zips up in his car and he's
With
like,
goodies.
gotta make sure Sophie, you guys are feeding Sophie. And he comes with bananas and cookies for my mom. And yeah.
Oh, God.
So these
awesome.
friendships have flourished. So actually, so many people we have met through the store. I really thought I knew a lot of people in Springfield because I'm like, I do this. I worked with,
Turns out
the
we
kids
didn't know
with
we didn't know many people. Yeah, yeah.
And then the
Like so
store
many people.
opened 2 years ago or so. And the sheer amount of friendships and people we've met and organizations we've learned about, but especially the people we've met.
Yeah, yeah. Good friends, Jack.
Oh my gosh, and Kyle and
Kyle
Jeff,
and
I mean,
Jeff,
I don't want to
and
start naming
yeah,
people because I don't want to leave
forget
anybody
somebody.
out.
Yeah,
I know.
but there's so many people.
Has been
Yeah.
so fantastic.
Yeah.
So fantastic.
Yeah, it's very warm and cozy. So you don't just care about the people in the community. You do care deeply about the people in the community, but you care also deeply about the people who manufacture the products that are in your store. So talk a little bit. I love your mission statement. I actually recently shared it on my
I saw that.
Instagram
Thank you very
story.
much.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And a friend of mine from one of the Carolinas has a store in a historic building, and she said, "Why have I never thought to include how much I care about my building in my mission statement?" So you inspired a shopkeeper
I love that.
Yeah,
along the
that's
East
awesome.
Coast
That's
to
so funny.
revise
That's
her
great.
mission statement to include her historic building. But talk about the mission of Duo.
So when we decided to open a store, to open Duo Home, we thought a lot about what we were selling, why we were selling those products, how it felt to us. And we made the decision that, one, our building has value and that whole aspect, but also what would make us feel good about what we were sending out the door. And so we came up with a mission very loosely of the 4 goods. And that was, we only buy from good companies. And I do my research. Many we know because we've been in the
in that
industry for so long. But that means they treat their employees well. They care about what they're doing. The sustainability factor. And so that's the good people. And then there's the good
Design is
good
part of it.
design.
Good
Yeah, that it's important to them, the design of what they're making, not just accidental. And also a good product, not just well-crafted, well-made with good materials, but also not bad stuff. A lot of things furniture has formaldehyde. There's coatings put on wood. We like a healthy home. I want to know that when something goes out of my store, it's healthy. So
It's not poisoning your customer.
Yeah, exactly.
as best as we all can.
Yeah,
And then
with
the
the
last
knowledge
one
we have, yeah.
is a good story. As you could tell, we like a good story.
story.
And so the 4 goods, the good story is, what's their story? I mean, I could tell you about every one of them. Many we know personally.
Every single thing you pick up in their store, if you ask, they'll tell you their story.
And we're fortunate that we've been in the industry, so we personally know most of the owners or the people who run the places that make it. And so, yeah, they all have there are great stories. Employee owned, 2 sisters, best friends, whatever. And so that, I think, adds to our love of our building, creating that sense. Kind of all goes together.
That's awesome. Anything else you want to share about what you guys are doing, what you have coming up?
I appreciate this. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Springfield and talk about what we're doing, talking about the people in this community. It is important to us.
Yes. And we caught Vicki and Tom during a very hectic week. They just had a 2-day warehouse sale. They were up at 11 o'clock last night, remembering that we had scheduled this today at the end of all of this craziness that they've had this week. So
been our
I
pleasure.
really
It's
appreciate that you guys, most people would have said, I've had enough commitments this week. I can't wake up and go talk to people after all that I have going on. But you guys didn't. And so I appreciate that very
Our pleasure.
much.
Well, we appreciate this. I'm looking forward to seeing all the episodes that come out and
Yeah,
and all the
absolutely.
great stuff, hearing all the other things about Springfield that
we
So
don't
many
know.
That we don't
great
know.
stories.
I know.
You gotta find
Get
out.
to learn about more people in
more people.
Springfield.
And I love when I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I love when you think you know something about someone and they surprise you.
Yeah.
And that's the great
Happens
part
all the
about
time.
like this right here. We're going to learn so much about so many people.
We are. I'm excited. All right. That's all.
Thanks so much.